Good evening and welcome to this Tuesday, November 17th, 2015 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remember to make sure your microphone is turned on, green light, and speak into it for the record. We'll call roll. Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Berenson.
Present. Here.
Yep. Commissioner Bowie.
Here.
Commissioner Crane.
Present.
Commissioner Fizer.
Present.
Commissioner Meiske.
Present.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
Present.
And Mayor Kirchhoff.
Present.
And Commissioner Faulkner is present. We have a quorum this evening. No personal appearances scheduled this evening. And one item on our consent agenda, which is acceptance of minutes from our September 1st, 2015 meeting. And as you wish, I would entertain a motion to accept either the consent agenda or minutes of September 1st, 2015 meeting as presented. Anyone?
Mr. Chair,
Mayor
I
Kirchhoff?
move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I believe that was a motion by Mayor Kirchhoff, seconded by Commissioner Sarsfield to accept minutes of September 1st, 2015 as presented. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 7, 8. And we have 8 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. Thank you. Nothing this evening under old business. And so we'll move into new business. And actually, the first item on new business this evening is election of officers for 2016, actually starting effective this evening, I guess. And so those officers are chair, vice chair, and secretary, and I would entertain whatever kind of motion any of the commissioners would care to make. Or the mayor. Shy bunch this evening. I can wait you out.
Chair, would you like me to jump in real quickly here for this?
Say again.
I can, while they think about what they're doing, I
Yes.
can give you your background on it if you'd like.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mr. Zer.
So you guys have adopted a Unified Development Code, which has provisions in it that say that at the first November meeting that you all attend, you are to elect your officers for the coming year. That would be your chair, vice chair, and secretary. You also have a set of bylaws that have been completed, and those under Article 5 provide your outline of what you have. All office of the commission shall be filled within the group of 8 citizen members. Nominations shall be made from the floor at the annual organizational meeting, and the election of the officers specified in the sections 1 of Article 4 shall follow immediately thereafter. A candidate receiving a majority vote of the membership of the commission in attendance shall be declared elected and shall serve for 1 year or until his or her successor shall take office. So we are looking for nominations and a second, and some individual who is willing to accept that nomination for chair, vice chair, and secretary.
And I think, as I recall, having been said in years past, if you're on the commission, guess what? You volunteered to serve in whatever position we elect you to.
That's correct. That is correct.
That's all among friends. Okay, well, Mr. Zer, you did very well. I don't suppose I could get a motion or a nomination from you. I know. I'm kidding, of course, but we appreciate you being here and reiterating the duties of the officers.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meiske.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we keep the officers the same this year. Can we do that?
Can I, by preference, have you
a nomination then.
Okay.
Shall I indicate who the current officers are?
I think we know, but yes, Commissioner Faulkner, excuse me,
Okay.
Chair is Commissioner Faulkner, Vice Chair Commissioner Pfizer, and Secretary
Right.
Commissioner Crane. So,
All right, so I'll make a motion to nominate Chairman Faulkner as the chair. Let's see. Who's the vice?
Pfizer.
Pfizer, okay, is Commissioner Pfizer as the vice and Commissioner Crane as the secretary.
Second?
And second to that nomination. Yeah, and Mr. Zur, I never remember the formalities. Nominations are a little bit different than a motion, but what I've got is a motion nominating the current officers to serve for another term by Commissioner Meiske, second by Mayor Kirkhoff.
Yes, that's correct, and then I would like to make sure that each of the officers understands that role and accepts that nomination. Shake your head yes. Good with that?
Shake your head, yes, sign in blood here. And, you know, that having been put into a motion, I think certainly we're still open for additional nominations. And I don't know parliamentary procedure wise how that would be handled to have multiple motions on the floor, but since it's nominations, does any of the other commissioners care to nominate other choices for chair, vice chair, and secretary? And seeing none, I guess let's take a vote on the motion to, I'm paraphrasing it, but the motion is essentially to retain the same 3 officers for the 2016 year as currently served. Sound okay, Mr. Zur?
You're okay, Jim, are you okay with the single vote for all 3? Yes.
Yeah. All right. All those in favor of the motion, raise a hand, please. And let's see. I have 8, so none opposed, no abstentions. And I guess I will continue to chair the meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, next item on new business this evening is acceptance of our 2016 meeting calendar. And Mr. Cataret, I'm going to turn this item over to you for further explanation, if you will.
Yes, sir, thank you. So in November of each year, the commission does look to establish its meeting calendar for the upcoming calendar year. This calendar establishes the meeting dates and then the subsequent filing deadlines for applicants to submit applications, as well as publication dates and even city council dates when items that you consider would actually be brought forward to the city council. The only date where we have, at this point, eliminated the meeting due to room scheduling conflicts would be the election that we know will be held April 5th. That's a city election. This particular council chambers is used as a polling place, polling location. So anytime there is an election that needs this space for voting purposes, we have to cancel our meetings. So the only conflict that I am absolutely know of would be April 5th. We also know there are potential for other special elections. And so I have those identified on your calendar. So if there is a special election, we will have to cancel our meeting. Those dates are identified as February 2nd, March 1st, and August 2nd. The November election, you meet November 1st. The election date would be November 8th, so we don't have a conflict in November this year. But I do, again, we've kept the meeting dates first and third Tuesdays, kept the meeting time at 7 o'clock. What I'd like is your discussion and consideration of accepting this calendar so we can post it and make it available to applicants.
Right. And Mr. Cataret, remind me, if you will, in addition to the prerogative to cancel a meeting if there's no business to conduct, we also could conceivably hold either a work session or a special session if needed.
If needed, yes, sir.
And
You can
those,
always do
and
that.
those have not been needed for a while.
Yes.
And let the record show that Commissioner Anderson has also joined us. You've missed all the fun so far, but we're not done yet. So we're discussing 7B, acceptance of the 2016 meeting calendar.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Kirkhoff.
I move to accept the 2016 meeting calendar as presented.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a second to accepting
Second.
the meeting calendar? Commissioner Bowie? All right, so motion by Mayor Kirkhoff, second by Commissioner Bowie to accept the proposed 2016 meeting calendar. Oh, it was? I'm sorry. Well, got a B right anyway. Thank you. So motion by Mayor Kirkhoff, second by Commissioner Berenson to accept the 2016 meeting calendar. Is there any further discussion on the calendar? Nope. Good. All those in favor of accepting the meeting calendar, raise a hand, please. And now I'm running out of fingers. Let's see, 4, 8. I have 9 in favor. Thank you. And none opposed, no abstentions. So, Mr. Carteret, thank you again for the work you do, and particularly pulling the calendar together. Really has a lot of detail on there, and I hope our applicants find that helpful. And I'm sure you find it helpful just to keep things straight, too. Okay, so that takes us along to item 7C, this evening, case 15018, 23rd Amendment to the Unified Development Code addressing sidewalk on corner lots. And I believe this is a topic that we actually have had some prior discussion on, now coming before us as a formal case. So, Mr. Carteret, if you would, present staff report and so forth on case 15018 to us.
Yes, sir, thank you. I am going to broadcast, I have a couple of, an aerial photograph and a map that I want to be able to show you, so I'm going to broadcast that now to you and start my staff report. The case before you is a request for the 23rd Amendment to our Unified Development Code. This particular amendment would modify the requirements that apply regarding the installation of sidewalk and undeveloped corner lots in our subdivisions. Since we are proposing to amend the text of the UDC, did advertise for public hearing this evening, and do need to enter into the record the growth management plan, the Unified Development Code, the notice of publication that was published in the Journal, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. So this 23rd Amendment is a result of discussion that the City Council held back in September of this year. And this was during their discussion of public hearings that were being held for those undeveloped lots that met the threshold as determined by staff in order to have sidewalk installed by the property owner. So the way the program works is that on January 1st of 2015, staff identified all the lots in the city subdivisions that met the requirement to have sidewalk installed. And the way the code reads as far as meeting the requirement, if 66% of the lots on one side of the street in a particular block already have sidewalk established, then those undeveloped lots are then required to install sidewalk. Each year, as new homes get built, there are new undeveloped lots that are triggered to meet the requirement. So every year we'll have new lots appearing on that meet the threshold appearing on the list. So this year, I believe we had approximately 23 lots that met the threshold. But we had, of those 23, we had several that were quarter lots. And during the public hearing, the question arose regarding how staff determines the threshold is met on a quarter lot. Part of that discussion actually started with the identification that staff used for the lot. There are addresses pre-assigned to all lots. On a quarter lot, there are 2 addresses pre-assigned. So the homeowner, when the home is built, where the front door faces is the address of that property. So we don't know in a corner lot until the home is actually, the plans are approved, and then we assign the address. Since, these undeveloped lots, I had no idea which, way the home would face. I simply selected one of the 2 addresses for identification purposes. The real identification of the lot is its legal description. But in using the common address, it did raise the question by a council member, and I'm going to point to a particular lot. It's actually the map on your screen here. This particular lot has that's in the blue with the star, is a lot that staff determined met the threshold requirement. It has an address both on Creekmore Pond Lane and Wiltshire Boulevard. The staff made the determination because it was the intent of the code that if a quarter lot meets a threshold on either side, one side or the other, if they meet the threshold, then the entire lot needs to have sidewalk placed upon it. This particular lot cannot ever meet the threshold on Creekmore Pond Lane. There's only 2 lots. Now granted, there's a home with sidewalk on one of the 2 lots, but you only have a 50% threshold. So that particular lot cannot meet the threshold on Creekmore Pond Lane. But if I use the address of Creekmore Pond Lane, it gave the impression that, well, that should be the street where the sidewalk, meets the threshold. When in fact, the threshold is met on Wiltshire Boulevard. And if I show you the aerial, it's a little easier to see. That's the quarter lot that we're talking about is here. You see on Wiltshire Boulevard, there is sidewalk installed all the way down to the next street. So we have sidewalk installed on greater than 66% of the lots. So this quarter lot met the threshold for having sidewalk installed. You can actually see there actually is sidewalk already on part of the lot that was put in when the roads were first installed. There's just no finalized connection. So the council did question the language of the code. They wanted clarification of the code. They wanted the code to be very clear that if a quarter lot is required, meets the threshold on any side, and we have some quarter lots that have streets on 3 sides. That does exist in certain subdivisions in our city where there actually are 3 street frontages. So if the intent being, if any one of those 3 meet the threshold, then the entire corner lot needs to have sidewalk installed. So what we're proposing to do is modify the language in the code to be a little bit, more clear. The language that staff has proposed, and I'll read it. It would state that if any portion of a quarter lot has frontage along a street that meets the threshold of subsection 5 above, and subsection 5 is where we talk about the 66% of the lots, then sidewalk is required to be installed on all street frontages of the quarter lot. So again, the important language is the first part of that: if any portion of a quarter lot has frontage along a street that meets the threshold. So that's the key. So if you have a 2-sided quarter lot and just one of the 2 sides meets the threshold, you have to install sidewalk on both sides. If it's a 3-quarter lot with 3 street frontages, any one of those 3, you have to install sidewalk on all 3 portions of the quarter lot. So we're just trying to make the language, again, a little clearer so any owners of quarter lots understand they have the requirement, if they meet the threshold on one side, to install sidewalk. Currently, if there is no ADA ramp on a quarter lot, and these would be for older subdivisions, they also have to install the ADA ramp at the intersection. Now, in our newer subdivisions that have been put in since 2005, the developer pre-installs the ADA ramp with the streets. So the ramps are already there, and then when a home builder comes along, they simply connect the sidewalk to the existing section where the ADA ramp is installed. So, as you'll see in this particular case, there's already an ADA ramp on the corner of this lot. So that was the purpose behind the request for this amendment. Staff felt that from a timing standpoint, that we wanted to bring this forward to you this calendar year because January 1st of 2016 starts the new list. And these lots, although we felt met the threshold requirement, council did not take action for the city to install sidewalk on. They wanted clarification of the code first before that decision was made. So, staff did not want to lose another year of not having sidewalk on what we feel are some pretty important lots in our city. And so we were hoping to at least get some discussion on this calendar year and hopefully a decision on this item this calendar year. So if this amendment is approved, recommended for approval by the commission and ultimately approved by the council by the end of this calendar year, then these lots would be added to the list for 2016 program. Staff did submit proposed findings regarding this particular text amendment, and we do recommend you accept those findings and forward this case to the city council with recommendation of approval. Again, it was advertised. I have not heard any comments regarding this particular application. So that'll conclude staff report at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carteret. So let me open the public hearing on case 15018, 23rd Amendment to the Unified Development Code, sidewalk on corner lots. And if anyone from the public would like to speak on this case, please come forward to the podium. Seeing no one coming forward, I'll close the public hearing and open the floor for discussion by the commission. Comments, anyone? Yeah, Commissioner
Mr.
Meiske?
Chairman, I have a question. Do we have any situations in the city to where you'd have, like on your example here, on Creekmore Pond, you have 2 lots wide. What if you had Wilshire Boulevard, you had 2 lots wide? Like instead of the pond, they had a cul-de-sac there? That would never meet the 66%. Do we have any of those in the?
A great question.
I'm sorry.
I don't have the, I would not, no, I would not. So the example over on the other side, if we look at Hampton Drive to the
Right.
east, we happen to have 3 lots there.
You have 3.
And so, yes, that lot actually met the threshold requirement, both on Hampton and Deaton Circle, you can see.
Right, but if if the Deaton Circle cul-de-sac was in this direction, north just a little ways, and there wouldn't be another lot there, do we have any of those? I mean, is this rural gonna meet?
I don't recall seeing any of those. I can't say with 100% certainty we don't have any, but 99% certainty we don't have any.
Okay.
Just in my familiarity with all the new subdivisions coming in, which is really what this applies to, I don't recall any situation where we have that scenario.
2 and 2.
It is something to keep in mind in the future as we look at plats. But I can't think of any. I know we have 3-sided lots in some of our newer subdivisions.
Right.
3-sided corner lots, but I don't think we have that scenario. That's a good question. I
Okay.
will want to I will check that.
Well, I was just wondering if subsection 5 was gonna meet, if we have that, obviously that'll never meet subsection 5.
That's correct, it would not.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you, Commissioner Meiske. Other questions, comments from the commission? Yeah. Commissioner Bowie?
Just something real simple. There might need a comment there in the your highlighted area there. I just was reading through it, what you have highlighted here. If any portion of a corner lot has frontage along the street that meets the threshold of subsection 5 above, comma, then sidewalk is required to be installed. Something
Right,
small.
thank you.
Sure. That's good. Mr. Zur, I presume you've reviewed this as well? Makes sense to you?
I didn't have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Willerth in advance of this this afternoon, but I did have the opportunity to take a look at it. It does not offend me by any stretch. I do like the discussion that Commissioner Meinske brought up with regard to the more than one side that would not fit with it. And I'm curious as to whether or not it would be potential of having some discussion in the future about between the developer and Jim on when those particular lots, because Jim would see a
Right.
plat, a proposed plat or a preliminary plat that would come in that would have that kind of a situation at the end of the day and could potentially address it early on with a
Right.
development agreement and say, hey, look, with regard to this particular lot, it doesn't match within our sidewalk provisions, and therefore we would anticipate that it will go in when you have house on one side or house on the other side go in. So that'd be my only thought for you, and it'd be an analysis from a case-by-case basis and something that maybe you want to consider in the future in that particular situation as a 24th amendment to the
Well,
code.
I feel fairly comfortable with this, since the primary purpose, I think, of this section was to address completion of existing development. I think your point's well taken, that
Well, and
it-
perhaps Jim is
it
even
bears
able
watching.
to do that without having an amendment of
Right.
the code at that point, because he's going to be able to see it come in and have a development agreement specifically related to it, which could be outside of the code provisions.
Well, with 20,000 plus residents in Raymore, and I forget the exact number, but what, 7,000 some odd
Units.
residences, wouldn't surprise me if we find an exception somewhere to challenge us on almost anything.
We would have the opportunity, as Mr. Scher stated, if in the future, if one comes in with that setup, we could address it at a development agreement
Yeah.
as far as timing of when that lot would, it would be a special circumstance because that'd be very unusual to see. But I am curious, and I will check before city council meeting if that scenario exists anywhere currently. It'd be good to know.
Right, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a quiet year. All right, good questions so far. Other questions or comments from the commission? Yeah, Commissioner Anderson?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Certainly.
I can make a motion to accept the staff proposed finding of facts in forward case 15018, 23rd Amendment to the UDC, to the City Council with a recommendation of approval.
I'll second.
Yeah, okay. So I think we have a motion, I know we have a motion by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Meinske. I believe it states to accept staff proposed findings of fact on case 15018 and forward the case to City Council with recommendation of approval. That sound right? Yeah. Okay, is there any further discussion on this case? And seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise a hand, please. And that's 9 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions. So that will go forward to City Council yet this year. And thank you again, Mr. Carteret, for pulling that together. All right, and the last item under new business, item 7D, a discussion item regarding pedestrian master plan. And Mr. Carteret, I'll bet we're back to you again, aren't we?
Yes, sir, thank you. So this evening I have added to the agenda, placed in your packet, a draft copy of a proposed pedestrian master plan. This particular plan would be a component or an element of our growth management plan. So most of you are familiar with the growth management plan. It has the feel and the layout of our growth management plan because it is intended to be part of that document. The purpose of the pedestrian master plan is to help the city meet certain requirements that we have for a couple of initiatives that we're currently involved in. The primary initiative is the Walk-Friendly Communities initiative, which is a nationwide initiative. It is locally sponsored by the Mid-America Regional Council. And the Walk Friendly Communities initiative is really a designation that is given to a community that meets certain criteria for providing safe, connected pedestrian environment for its residents. There are multiple levels of recognition, going from bronze to silver to gold to platinum. There are only a couple of communities in the Kansas City region that currently have that designation. Lee Summit has a bronze level, and I believe Gladstone has a, I'm sorry, Lee Summit has a silver, and Gladstone has a bronze level. Seattle, Washington would be an example of a platinum city. Seattle is often referred to as the most walkable city in the country. So there are, I believe, currently in about 52, 54 cities across the nation that have this designation. Raymore became aware of this particular program as part of all of our work that we've been doing on creating a pedestrian environment. You know, we have, as a city, been very invested in trail construction and sidewalk construction, very progressive as a community in doing that. And it kind of opened our eyes to what some other cities were doing regarding pedestrian plans and the like, and that's how we became aware of the initiative. So I've been working with other city employees to prepare the nomination, the application that's required to gain that designation. So there are a lot of different efforts that we're doing. It involves the police department because we have to have safe walk environment, and we have to have safe scenarios where we don't have motorist and pedestrian conflicts. It involves public works and the design of our roadways and design of our signal systems and also our sidewalk network. And it involves our recreation, Parks and Recreation Department because of the trail network that we have in our city. So we've all come together to work on the application. And one of the items that came to light to us is they want the city to have a pedestrian plan. What's your master plan for what you're doing? And honestly, we've had a lot of planning efforts, but they've been isolated elements. You know, we have a trail master plan, and we've had the 5-year capital sidewalk plan for a number of years that keeps getting updated. And you know, we've spent all the city funds that we have in these programs, but nowhere did we have it all together in one document. And so that was the real intent of this plan, is to meet the requirement that we've been asked to meet, but also to provide kind of a history of where we're at and what we've done, as well as, you know, establishing some goals and as well as some recommendations on how we can continue to be more pedestrian friendly in our community. And so that's the goal of this particular document. Again, I've got a draft before you this evening for discussion purposes. It's also been in the hands of various staff members to take a look at and others. And what I would like is, again, just discussion this evening, but we are in a tight time frame, and so we would look, and I have advertised for public hearing in this document at your next meeting on, I believe it's December 1st, I believe. What is our next meeting date? Yeah, December 1st. Would be a request for action by the commission. And this is as an element of the growth management plan, you have complete authority over adoption of this plan. This plan does not go on to city council. So again, that's where we're at this evening, just looking for any comments you may have or questions you may have on the initiative. It was, you know, I have to admit, somewhat hastily put together, because over the last couple of months is when we really started this particular initiative, and so it came to light to us that we needed to have this document. So again, fortunately, we had a lot of the components already in place. And the actual application for the nomination goes much beyond this. This is just one small part of it. But I thought it was important enough that we try to meet that requirement and get the plan in place, because I think we have done a decent job of planning for the pedestrian network. I just kind of wanted to document that. And so that's where we're at this evening, and just I'm open for any comments, suggestions you may have on the document, but not looking for any action.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carteret. So just a couple of quick questions that I have. On page 8, second paragraph, there's a placeholder, a couple of XX on the miles of sidewalk, and I think I remember seeing possibly one or two other placeholders throughout the document. Is it going to be any problem to actually get hard numbers to fill those in?
No, so you're right, and there is another, I think somewhere I talk about the percentage of lots that have sidewalk on it, or percentage of residents that are served by sidewalk. We have the ability, we have that information on our GIS.
Yeah.
I just haven't plugged the number in
Yeah,
yet.
okay.
But Heather is working on that for me,
Okay.
so we do have that information.
I just didn't want to assume, I didn't really want to publish with the X's in there unless it
Agree.
was.
Yes, so we
unless there
definitely
was
have
some
those place marked, and we'll
good
we'll
reason.
fill that in.
Okay, my other question, Mr. Carteret, would be that, you know, as you mentioned, we have other documents included in the GMP by reference. For instance, this would join those, I believe. Would it actually provide an opportunity to remove any duplicate information from other plans where it may currently reside, or do you see this simply as a compilation in addition to language in the GMP, for instance, already, and so forth?
I think it is a compilation of elements that are in several other plans. You mentioned the
Right.
growth management plan. I mentioned earlier the Trails Master Plan. So we have a few of the components of that embedded in this pedestrian plan, where maybe I copied a map or referenced that document. But I don't see it replacing any other document we have. I do see it as an extension of the growth management plan, and
Well,
I still see the Trails Master Plan as a component.
Right.
Just like this is.
And that's part of the Parks Department. I wouldn't propose to take that away from them.
Correct. And we also have the Parks Master Plan, which is
Right.
partly a component of the GMP.
Right. Well, I like the initiative. I like moving forward. My concern would be, number one, it bothers me when we have similar information in multiple places, but it doesn't agree. And I mean, there's always a time factor of when the document was last updated, but that matter of trying to keep all of the documents in sync so that the information agrees, that's just a concern of mine. Oh, sorry, Mayor Kirkhoff.
Thank you. With the application of this, are we going to go for bronze, silver, or gold, or platinum?
Hey, whatever we can get.
Absolutely, whatever, I'm confident we're gonna get bronze, because I think we go above the minimums. It's hard to know. I know, Lee Summit started off at bronze in 2014 and gained silver in 2015 based upon a program that they had initiated this year. We already have that program in place. We're already
So
doing a
we're
lot
at
of
the
things
silver
that
level
some
then.
other communities already get recognition for. So, we don't specifically make application for a particular level. They will grade us, and whatever level we fall under is what they will award us. So I'm gonna hope for the bronze level to start, and if we
Or
get something
silver.
higher, that would be fantastic. Because I do think we do a lot of good things for pedestrians in the city of Raymore.
Now, Mr. Zer?
Normally, I wouldn't speak up on this, and I'd probably tell Jim about it after the meeting, but for discussion purposes, I think it might be helpful. On page 11, if I'm looking at that, one of the things that I'd want to see on there, or that I think might be helpful for them in reviewing that, would be, you've got large swaths of undeveloped portion. And it might be helpful if I was looking at this from an individual who was interested in where are my sidewalks, where are my walkable trails, to know that the entire bottom left-hand corner of that map is all undeveloped land. So I don't know if you can provide that as an overlay, but it might be worth the effort just to show, hey, look, there's a reason we don't have sidewalks down here. It might be self-explanatory to most planning individuals, but for someone just coming into the city, they're going to see, well, yeah, I got tons of sidewalks right here in the center, and I've got city limits that push out a long ways on either side of it. Showing that as undeveloped property might be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. If we can somehow modify the map to illustrate that, that's a great thought. Thank
And I
you.
believe that the map included in the pedestrian master plan will be a snapshot in time, and the GIS database is going to have the latest information at any given time, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So it will be a snapshot. I think this will be another one of those documents that's rather dynamic.
Got a good question.
Yeah, Commissioner Bowie?
I have a question and I got a comment. On page 19, when I was looking through this, I noticed how when we talked about funding, for the sidewalk funding, you included a chart, pretty well laid out chart in terms of the allocation of monies towards the sidewalk installation program, and I didn't quite see the same thing on the trail funding. You did take some time out to go through each year, or the last few years, of what's been done with the trail funding in terms of monies, but it might be helpful to include a chart over here as well. It might give an illustration of the date, the years and so forth that you've been working on the trail funding, similar to the sidewalk funding. The question I had, which I didn't, maybe I missed it in here, was what is the city's fiscal commitment to the trail funding? Where does this stand in terms of priority and so forth?
Great question. Yeah, because we have an annual commitment for sidewalk installation, at least in the capital plan through 2017, I believe. We do not have an annual commitment to trail construction as part of our capital plan at this point in time. You'll see where we have done some things over the years. You know, our last bond issue that we did back in 2007 provided a lot of trail work for us. I don't know, you know, we're looking at moving forward as a community for a no tax increase bond issue in April of 2016. I don't know if trail segments are part of that. That would be, at this point, the only funding source that I'm aware of where we would have availability to do trails. I don't believe they are part of the 5-year CIP to do any new trail segments. I don't recall seeing that, but yeah, it's certainly a more prevalent commitment to sidewalk than trail at this point in time, but that could change, of course, as we look at the CIP each year.
I would think that if you're talking about bronze versus, you know, platinum, I think that trail funding is probably a big piece of that,
Yeah.
in the future.
You are correct. And one comment, just if I may, it goes a little bit off of that point, but you know, trails can be, you know, a lot of times we think of trails as off-road trails. Trails can be, you know, on-road as well. And another initiative we'll be talking more about with council will be a livable streets initiative, which is complete streets, livable streets, kind of a, you know, same term for the same type of idea, but there may be some ability for us to be more proactive with some on-street trails to provide some quicker trail connections with some of these subdivisions. You know, when we looked at the map and you see Ward Park Place way off, you know, and Alexander Creek off on the far east side of our community, there is no connection for those subdivisions to the rest of the community without getting in a vehicle. And so there's some thought that although we have a great trail plan eventually to provide trail connection out to those areas, maybe a shorter term solution would be an on-street trail system, you know, maybe paved shoulders. Lee Summit's done a tremendous job in that area where they're doing some very wide shoulders for on-street trails. Just as an interim measure, you know, something we can do immediately, because as we talk about trails, the difficulty that we have is sometimes is not having the property, the right-of-way, the easements to do that. Sidewalks, we always have right-of-way, almost always have right-of-way to do that. Trails is a little bit more difficult, especially if it's off-street trails, where we may not have the ability to cross private property. So it just presents it's a more difficult program for us to implement. We have a great plan, it's just more difficult, it's certainly more costly for us to implement that, you know, a trail program than it is a sidewalk program.
Yep, good questions. This end of the table is rather quiet. Any questions, comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have
Commissioner Meiske?
I have a question, or I guess more of a comment.
Works.
I might have missed this, but it's only referenced a couple of times, the growth management plan, and on page 20, you've got just one of the goals. Is there a reason why we didn't include other goals?
The one I included was the one that was most directly connected to this pedestrian plan.
Okay.
I tried to identify down below, you'll see where it simply says other action steps identified in the GMP. That goal statement, community connectivity goal number 3, was only one that I thought the goal statement specifically related to the plan, but there are other parts of the GMP, these action steps that I
Right.
talk about,
Okay.
that do tie in, and so that's where I tried to make the tie-in
Okay.
as best as I could.
Well, I mean, I like the GMP, so
Yes.
I want to advertise it as much as possible.
I tried to, yeah, I would have liked to have added actual more goal statements, but they didn't quite match as close as this one did, so.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Anderson.
Jim, just for my, guess, understanding, so the on-street trails, that's could be considered what maybe a bike lane or
Yeah, that's what we'd be looking at as maybe part of our livable street program would be, yeah, on-street bike lanes. Maybe if we have opportunities in certain street segments to restripe the roadway, to incorporate a designated bike lane, maybe we could look at doing that. And-
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Carteret, would the trail alongside Fox Ridge Drive through Creekmore, would that be a good example of an on-street trail?
That actually would be an off-street trail because it is separate from the pavement of the
Oh, I
street.
got you. Okay, now okay. So the land strip in between is the differentiator?
It does, yes.
Okay.
When you're saying on-street, kind of like the bike lanes, it's gonna require a considerable amount of money in terms of widening streets and so forth, correct?
It would in some instances. When I talk about the Ward Park Place subdivisions on the outskirts, that would entail widening the pavement. But there may be some street segments, Lucy Webb's a good example, where we have some very wide lanes on that, painted lanes on that. We could, through restriping, look at providing actual painted bike-only lanes on that road segment because of the width of that pavement. That won't happen everywhere, but there are a few examples, and I'm not saying it will happen at Lucy Webb, it's probably the best example that we have that comes closest to allowing it, just because of its pure width. And for the most part of Lucy Webb, there's a center turn lane that, for the most part, is not necessary. So through restriping, we may be able to do something there. It's just one suggestion. But certainly as we design new roadways, it makes it easier to think ahead and to design the roadway with an on-street trail. That doesn't affect, width of driving lanes in any way, so.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
Yes, considering that the roads aren't wide enough, I've noticed a few months ago on 58 between here and 291, I guess the state puts up the road or the county, and it says, they have the signs up that say, share the road. Now, it doesn't say bike lane or anything, and we all know if you go off the road, whether you're in a car or a bike, you're in a 4-foot ditch in 90% of that road. I mean, there's certain roads that shouldn't even have a share the road sign on, J Highway isn't too bad, but there's some nasty spots there on 58. And I don't know how that was, or who okayed that to put that in, but there's not even anything on the pavement and painting the same that it is unless you notice the sign.
Yeah, another example, and you're correct, yeah, I've seen those signs out there. The Highway 150, just to the north of us, has the share the road signs as well up and down that roadway, where they're basically saying that the bicycles, be aware that the bicycles are using the same lane as what vehicles are utilizing.
Right.
Yeah, two examples there.
Especially with the speed limit there is 55, where Lucy Webb is 25 or 30, and it's reduced speed on J Highway a little bit. The worst is School Road on a Sunday morning. You'll have sometimes 200 bikers on that road, and they do not share the road.
Nor on J Highway.
Nor on J Highway, no. If you honk at them, they just I don't care, I'm biking.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Well, I think too, on page 7, and Mr. Carteret, I'm using this good material that you've pulled together, but bottom paragraph on page 7 makes a statement with 46% of the land area in the city undeveloped. There are many opportunities for infill development. I think it's probably easier going forward to use the pedestrian master plan as a guide and make sure that new development facilitates better connectivity, both pedestrian, bike lanes, et cetera. It's easier in my mind to add that with new development. It's more costly and sometimes problematic to shoehorn that into existing development. But again, you know, this gives us a place to start, and at some point, it may be like the sidewalk infill program. At some point, you know, if we've got 90% connectivity and we only need small pieces, then we can address those
Yes.
probably a little more effectively than when we've got half of the land area roughly undeveloped.
And that was part of the idea here, you know, our code, and it's referenced in this document for new developments coming in that show where the trails, future trail segments are going to be. They have to install those trail segments.
Right.
That's how we're relying on new trail segments to come in as new development to happen. But this document kind of extends that on to any type of pedestrian system being looked at when new developments come forward. So as you look at, you know, new preliminary plats coming in, we'll refer to the plan and make sure that there's, you know, safe pedestrian networks and trail segments are being installed where they should be and the like. So that's how this plan takes care of that 46% of land that's undeveloped. Is we got a lot of opportunities to make things right.
I think it makes good sense.
Yeah.
Other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Pfizer.
When we get our silver or gold designation, I'm going to think positive here, what kind of publicity do we get for that? I mean, is there a big sign welcoming people? And how do other people know that we have this designation?
There will be a lot of publicity on that. Again, simply because not that many communities move forward with even the bronze level designation. So we as a city certainly will promote it, which is one of the reasons we're doing the initiative. We're not necessarily trying to pat ourselves on the back. What we're trying to do is let the world know, you know, individuals that maybe are looking to move throughout the Kansas City area, if they start seeing some of the things that we're known for, you know, Tree City, our park system, our school system, hey, we got great pedestrian connectivity, we got bike trails. When individuals start seeing these things and that we're recognized for that, we were recently recognized for our solar program, a gold level solar program. It just lets people know that we're embracing these things. We're embracing, you know, all these different programs and trying to make it a better place to live. And they're great economic development tools when we can start saying we have these designations. That's how we utilize the information is to, you know, get individuals to know, hey, Raymore's doing some good things, and, you know, to try to promote our communities. So that's the real emphasis behind what we're trying to do with this initiative.
Okay, thanks.
There's also tie-in with your aging community initiatives too.
Absolutely is, yeah. Direct tie-in with that, which is the next initiative that we'll be, as a group, working on, yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Good. Commissioner Crane.
Jim, right before I came up here, I happened to be looking on Facebook and saw a new marketing tool that the city of Peculiar has come up with, a very slick marketing video piece, you know, touting the 211th Street interstate intersection and all. I was wondering, does Raymore have something like that? I mean, you talk about that we're trying to tout this. In what way are we doing that?
Yeah, you're right, and I've seen that piece. It's very well done.
Pretty slick piece.
Very well done, and we certainly have the capabilities of doing that in-house. And I would say, you know, our marketing public relations director, fairly new on the job, but has those skills to be able to do those kind of things, and I certainly see that happening in the future. But yes, all the publications that we do, all the contacts that we do, and the information we send out to individuals, let them know of the various things that we have available. You know, we tout our police department because of the low crime rates that we have and where we're ranked in the state for such low crime rates. You know, we try to get every aspect of building up our community when we do market our community for economic development. And this is a great tool for us, and our economic development director will definitely utilize this once we achieve the recognition. So we do try to market it every way we can, and I believe we continue to do better at it.
I'm not trying to shut down comment on this, but just a reminder, Mr. Cataract, I think you introduced this by saying we didn't need any action on this evening.
That is correct. I have advertised for a public hearing on your next meeting, December 1st. So
Okay.
I'll incorporate some of the comments you suggested this evening. You'll see it as a final draft.
Oh,
It doesn't mean you still can't make changes to it, but
Of
if you do vote and approve it that night, then it is an adopted part of our
Right.
GMP. But
So I think that was the key piece of information, that this document will be under control of Planning and Zoning Commission, doesn't require council approval.
that is correct, just like the GMP.
Hopefully, they will reference it as well. I find a lot of really good information on raymore.com. I'm not necessarily a quick adopter of technology, but, you know, the more I live here, the longer I live here, the more I use that, the more I find that raymore.com is really a good source of information. Sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to get the right terminology. You know, I think I was looking for city engineering, and I had to think a little harder, Mr. Eanes, because you're actually under Public Works. And of course, you know, planning and zoning, we're under community development. You have to dig a little bit or become a little bit familiar with it, but there is already a tremendous wealth of documentation, background information, and so forth on raymore.com. It's very helpful.
Not to confuse you even more, but we are about to change our website around, so
Oh, well, you
in a
know,
month or two, you probably won't recognize it.
More training.
it might be like what happens when your favorite store does a complete rearrangement, and of course, you can't find things that you're used to just
That's right.
walking directly to and picking up. But you always find, oh, I didn't know they had this, oh, I didn't know they had that. So you find, you know, I think one offsets the other.
I'm old school. I like things to remain the same, so I'm going to
Oh, I
hold
do-
my judgment on the new website, but they say it's going to be
Yeah.
easier to use,
Well,
so.
I'm with you, but we've been around long enough to know that if there's one thing that's inevitable, it is change. So we might as well learn to love it. We'll move on unless commissioners have any further discussion this evening on pedestrian master plan. And Mayor Kirkhoff?
I was just going to say, go for the gold.
I like that. We will. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, it'll be a learning process, I'm sure, because it sounds like basically we'll be audited against the standards, and that will identify areas for improvement, correct?
Thank you. That is correct. That's a great comment. Yeah, when we go through the initial application process, they will score us. They will tell us areas where they feel that we can make improvements, and so we utilize that to do better the next year. So if we get a particular bronze or silver recognition this year, we will continue to work towards a higher recognition level, and because we do know a few areas that we need to work on. You know, an ADA transition plan, for example. We don't have one in place, but it is something we need to have in place. So we will be working over that the next year. So, but that's a great comment. They're going to give suggestions to us on how to improve, and that's again one of the goals we want to reach through this process.
Good. Good. Let me see. I think that'll take us to City Council report. Mr. Zur, are you up to that this evening?
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be able to come down and speak with you and participate in your meeting this evening. I did have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Willerth before this evening's meeting, and he provided me some items with regard to a city council report. I would note that he was not able to go back as far as the October 12th, 2015 city council, so I'm going to steal somewhat from Jim with regard to his planning commission pipeline when it comes to that. I'll work back real quickly. November 9th, 2015, the city council had the opportunity to meet, and at that point, Mr. Willerth did not identify any substantial readings, hearings, or motions that occurred, or approvals of any items that would have been of interest to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Prior to that, there was an October 26, 2015 City Council meeting. At that meeting, there was a second reading for a contract for the real estate purchase. This is for an annex to City Hall Annex building. That was also that was the second reading at that particular time. First reading occurred on the October 12th, 2015 City Council meeting. Basically, the city has reserved $1.5 million in the city's restricted revenue fund for use in the construction of a City Hall Annex building, and reserve fund, which will be to purchase Lot 4 in the Raymore Municipal Complex from Valley View State Bank. Prior to that was an October 12th, 2015 City Council meeting. At that time, our own Commissioners Crane as well as Bowie were reappointed to the Planning Commission for another term, and there was a second reading at that point for the purchase of the municipal complex lots 5, 8, and 9. And there was approval of a resolution acknowledging the city's interest in becoming recognized as a community for all ages. That is the quickest overview, and I appreciate Jim letting me steal from him for the October 12th, 2015 materials that Mr. Willerth did not have.
Yeah, great. And thank you, Mr. Zur. So, Mr. Carteret, I think we're ready for the staff report then.
Thank you, sir. I have several items this evening, but I'll try to go through quickly. Talking on upcoming meetings, the first one, we do have a Good Neighbor meeting tomorrow evening here in the council chambers at 6 o'clock p.m. And this Good Neighbor meeting is for an application that you'll be seeing come forward at your December 1st meeting regarding the reclassification of 4 lots the city has purchased in the municipal circle. So Mr. Zur just mentioned Lot 4. We also purchased Lot 5, Lot 8, and Lot 9. Lot 4 and 5 are, as I'm facing to the south here, are to the west of what used to be the daycare building. So there's actually 4 lots on the south side of the circle to the west of that building. We purchased 2 of the 4. And then Lot 8 and 9 are on the corner of Broadmoor and the circle on the east side of the building here, across the street from Mr. Frederick's law office building. Lot 8 and 9 are the 2 lots where the city is looking at constructing a building at this point in time. Then eventually we would look at doing something with lots 4 and 5. Lot 8 and 9 currently being talked about as the City Hall Annex. It's more of a location where there would be civic meeting rooms, a replacement for the community room that used to be downstairs many years ago when the police department had to expand due to its growth. We lost that room as being available for where the individuals, the city, groups could meet, and so we do have a need for gathering space, for meeting space, and so we are currently working with a design firm to design a building for that particular property as well as the site. The City Council had a work session last night, just the beginning of the process for designing that building. But the first step in all of that, after we purchased it, was to classify the zoning for city zoning. All of the city properties have the Parks, Recreation, and Public Use zoning. This lot has that zoning. So that would be the first step. So we have put that application in to rezone those 4 lots to the Parks and Recreation zoning. It will still retain the overlay zoning of the Civic Circle Center. We have an overlay zoning for design of buildings and properties in the municipal complex. So those standards still apply just like they'd apply to Mr. Frederick and his building and any other privately owned lot. So again, with the Good Neighbor meeting tomorrow, and at your December 1st meeting, the public hearing. And then also at your December 1st, as we just talked about, we'll have the public hearing for the adoption of the pedestrian plan. I do not have any items scheduled currently for December 15th. So would ask for some direction regarding that particular meeting. The meeting following that would be January 5th, so it's unknown what items we'll have for that meeting.
Do we need to decide about December 15th this evening, or can we decide it at our December 1st meeting?
We could wait until December 1st in case something came up.
Yeah.
There's no harm in that, so
Okay,
we could do that.
if there's no harm in it, yeah, since we know we're going to meet on December 1st, let's
Okay.
talk about December 15th.
Very good. So that's our schedule currently for meetings. I do want to bring to the board's attention, there has been a change in the calendar for our Board of Adjustment. I don't anticipate it affecting the Planning Commission in any way, but I do want to talk to you about it. The availability of this room is decreasing as far as what dates are available for any kind of meeting. And I don't like having meetings on Wednesdays. Wednesdays do create a lot of conflicts for religious reasons for a lot of individuals. It seems to be the only time we can have our good neighbor meetings. That's why we have one tomorrow.
Right.
I do try to schedule a little bit earlier at 6 o'clock. Hope maybe that would help a little bit. But on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, this room is booked. And so we ran into a problem. We, the city, formed a new Arts Commission about a year ago. And they didn't have a time to meet. And the second Tuesday of every month continued to be open because our Board of Adjustment was not meeting. So they just started to fall into that time slot. Then we started televising the meetings and recording the meetings, and they now own that time slot of the second Tuesday of every month. So we had to find a new date and time for our Board of Adjustment, who happened to be, who did happen to meet November 10th. Fortunately, the Arts Commission had canceled their meeting that night, so we didn't have a conflict. What I've had to accomplish was moving the Board of Adjustment meeting to a Tuesday. What I proposed to the board, their board meetings usually run no longer than 30, 35 minutes. So what I suggest is that they meet on the third Tuesday of every month. Their schedule would be the third Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock. And again, if we have an agenda item, it's been years since they've gone anywhere close to being an hour in time frames when they did meet, so I don't see any potential conflict. But I would be able to control the schedule somewhat of the board and the planning commission, so we don't have that overlap. I just wanted you to be aware that there is a potential the board would be meeting on your meeting night, but again, I don't see that as being a conflict. Until we get the annex building, that's the only option that we have available. So I just wanted to let you know about that. I also want to talk about the upcoming American Planning Association Conference, our annual conference that we have. And a few of you have attended those conferences in the past. This year, the conference is in Phoenix, Arizona. And it is scheduled for Saturday, April 2nd through Tuesday, April 5th is the time frame. And once again, the city manager has budgeted funding for one planning commission member to attend. There are very specific planning tracks available for commissioners, but the entire session and conference is open to the commission members. So I wanted to put that out there early. We do like to make reservations and commitments early. So you get hopefully the conference hotel to stay in, as well as getting you registered. All the expenses are paid for by the city, so the city, through the city's budget, we cover the transportation cost and the hotel cost and meals and likewise. So I do want to, again, open that up. I believe Commissioner Meiske, you went last year in Seattle. Commissioner Crane went the year before in Atlanta. So it does move throughout the United States. I believe, again, this year's in Phoenix, Arizona in 2016. 2017 will be New York City. And I don't know after that. I think maybe San Francisco after that. So again, please, we usually just leave it open to see if a commissioner has an interest, first of all, in going, and second of all, can make that commitment of time frame. And it's April 2nd, which is a Saturday, so the conference does start Saturday morning, so you really have to travel on Friday. And then it runs through Tuesday, April 5th, usually over about noon on Tuesday. But again, travel, you can stay till Wednesday, depending upon travel, especially when it's, Phoenix is some distance away, so travel, the time change. Typically, I would travel, and I will be going this year, and I would travel on Friday and probably either get back Tuesday or Wednesday morning. And again, the commissioner's available to set your own schedule, your own flight, however you want to handle it. But I would like, if you're interested, let us know, and we can, we try to spread the love around, and, so Don, Commissioner Beisky, you're probably out.
Do you have a drop dead,
Do
do you have a drop dead date that you want to know?
not specifically, although registration begins first week of December, and if you want to stay in a conference hotel, which usually is best, we need to get you registered right away. All the conference hotels are close, but it's nice to be at the main hotel. That way, between sessions, if you need to run to your room, it's easy to get to. So it's what's recommended, but
I don't remember there ever being a year when a commissioner went and didn't find it enjoyable and very valuable. So I think it's always a good opportunity. I'd say let's discuss this again at our December 1st meeting. Anybody that's interested, let's throw your hat in the ring, and then we can choose sides and decide who we want to send. I'm kidding, of course, but with work and personal schedules and conflicts, I certainly would like for at least one of the commissioners to be able to go. It's too good an opportunity to miss. So think about that. We'll discuss it again December 1st and see. I'm a little shocked that it's coming up that quick to start registration, but you're right. It's always good to jump in there early.
I'll add that to our agenda as a reminder
If you
then
would.
for
Thank
December
you, sir.
1st. Then a couple other items. One is just bring to your attention, you may or may not have observed this, but we spent a lot of time on sign regulation as a planning commission, as a city. And one of the components that we don't really ever discuss is the non-conforming section of our sign code. So we talk about our sign code, how we've eliminated the allowance of new pole signs, and we've gone to monument signs, and and we've had these new sign regulations, but we do have older signs in our city that are classified as non-conforming, meaning they were installed, they got a permit, they were legal, but now they don't meet our code. But our code does not amateurize or force the conversion of that non-conforming sign to make a conversion after X number of years. We just let it remain as long as it's in use. And that's the key term. But we've had, over the last couple of months, 3 non-conforming signs have been removed. 2 of them because we told the individuals they had to remove them, and 1 of them they removed on their own. But it's somewhat significant because I think what it does is it helps our overall image that we were trying to create when we adopted the new sign code and have maintained that code. So you may not have noticed the businesses. The first one was a very small abandoned sign, and it was for the daycare that was over on Pine Street and Madison Street, kind of across from Harmon's. They had a real small little sign that had been abandoned probably since I've been here, honestly. That sign got removed after we provided notice to them. The more significant one was the sign at 58 Transmissions there on Madison Street and Pine. It was a very large steel-structured sign. I wouldn't call it a pole sign. It had dual poles going up, but it was a very large sign. When that business went out of business, they took off the panels to the sign and just left the framework. Under our code, that can only remain unused for 6 months. And I keep a very close eye on the signs. I let it go past 6 months. It rolled into about 8, still was not being used, notified the owner. At that time, they can't reuse the sign. Our code says it has to come down. That owner removed the sign. But a very significant non-conforming sign in our community. And the other one was Rush Hour. When Rush Hour closed, you saw they removed that sign.
That was very noticeable.
As soon as they removed the sign, because they removed it, the sign that goes back up has to be in compliance. So it won't be as big, it won't be as tall, and it will be conforming just like any other freestanding sign. So I just point that out because it's it's those steps that we take, well, through volunteerism or through enforcement, that will bring us to ultimate conformance. You know, at some point in time, some of our other pole signs that we see will go away. It takes a long time, but at some point they will go away, and we'll get to, you know, to the image that we were trying to create when you adopted the code.
Yeah, it's been in place for a long time, but
Yes.
I know we've certainly had some challenges to it. I think we've tried to be reasonable at the same time, trying to hold fast and move forward, not backslide, and
Yes.
you know, takes ongoing attention to hold the progress that we've made while looking for opportunities to improve further. That's right.
That's right. So, yeah, again,
Well
you may
said.
have noticed, you know, those signs, or, but I just thought I would point that out, because I think it is, you know, it is, again, leads to the quality program that we're trying to create with that code. And then the last comment I have in talking about the code, I have had to recreate the Unified Development Code. When we had our last 22nd amendment, I always want to incorporate the amendment language into the code. And you may or may not know this, I don't want to dwell on it, but the city recently shifted away from Microsoft software to Google.
Oh,
And in doing so, God love Google, I won't say anything beyond that. It presented quite a hurdle for us in updating the Unified Development Code. So we did recreate the code. It didn't mean retyping it, but I had to go through and do a significant number of tweaks to the code to get it to fit the Google format, which we have. But it did change enough of the code, and I know I recently gave you one of these documents, but if you want a printed copy of the code, you do need to pick one of these up, because the page numbers change slightly, but you won't notice any difference. The index is the same, the formatting is all the same, you won't see the difference, but enough change in the pages that I needed to reprint the entire document. So I have one available for everybody. I know not all of you want one, but it is there. And if you don't have a binder, you can grab one to put it in a binder if you'd like. But it is the complete UDC up to the 22nd Amendment. So,
And all the wonder that's Google. Do you have the ability to provide us one that we could put on our Kindles so we don't have to lug the 5-pound notebook around?
absolutely do, yeah.
come on, that's,
I will send that to you.
that's only 3 or 4 pounds, but yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the new zoning categories, Z5B and a few that, no, I hope I'm kidding.
Didn't sneak anything in on you, but I did have to, again, kind of reproduce it, so I want to make that
Yeah.
available, because I
Oh,
know
thank
some
you.
individuals want a very up-to-date copy. so.
Right, yes, it's always good to have. Anything else?
I think that's actually it. Sorry it took so long.
No, that was very informative, thank you,
Can I
Mr.
ask a quick
Cataract.
question? That's a quick question.
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner Boyd.
Just want to ask something about the annex that you said that was coming next door. And you said this would be talked about at the Good Neighbor meeting tomorrow, and also December 1st, we'll see something regarding it.
What you'll see is, we'll really focus more on just the zoning of the property, and I will have to talk about what uses are allowed, but I won't get into a schematic or a sketch of the property or anything of that nature at your meeting. At the Good Neighbor meeting, I probably will show them a very early schematic that we shared last night with council, because who we're inviting tomorrow are the immediate neighbors behind the building. And I want them to at least see, it doesn't mean that's what we're going to build, but it is what we are planning on, generally designing it. I want them to be able to see what the city has at this point in time in mind. So we will schematically show it tomorrow evening, but when it comes to the commission and the public hearing, we'll be focusing just on the zoning and what ultimately, what could be built there. Just whenever we do any rezoning, I like to talk about the whole gamut of what could be placed there, not just what that applicant wants to do, because we're opening it up to everything that can be done there.
So you're not, in terms of a design firm that's putting it together, you're not very far along in design at all?
We are not at all.
It's just more the conceptual stage?
Very conceptual, and And one other comment on that, again, December 1st, you'll see the zoning request to make it the city zoning classification. A requirement the city will have is a conditional use permit to put a building on that property. So as a commission, you will see the conceptual plan. In order for the city to build the building, we have to have commission and council approval to actually put the building there. And then one step further, you would see the site plan and have the final say on the site plan for the property. So you'll be seeing that building in various stages as it moves forward.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'll open the floor to public comment, and it appears that our one public has left, so we'll move on to commission member comment, and haven't done this in a while. I'm getting rusty on this. Secretary Crane, I think I'll start with you if that's okay.
I attended the Johnston family flagpole dedication at TB Hanna Station, and just want to say what a wonderful addition that is to the town. I mean, it was in the evening, it was brightly lit. I hope that we see it used a lot besides just farmers market in the future. Also, I will be out of town December 1st and will be unable to attend.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Berenson.
No comment tonight, sir.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
No comment at this time.
He's hiding. Commissioner Meiske.
No comment.
Well, I couldn't see you over there, but that's all right. Let's see. Vice Chair Pfizer.
Well, Commissioner Crane took my comment. I was going to say that I also attended
Oh, well,
the
that's worth
farmers
mentioning.
market opening, and it was really a nice facility, and I look forward to using it in the future, or going there,
Yeah.
I guess, in the future. And other than that, just everyone have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowie
No comments tonight.
and Mayor Kirkhoff.
I will not be able to attend on December 1st either, so I will be absent.
We'll have a slim crowd. Did I miss anybody? Commissioner Anderson, right here beside me. Talk about
I
overlooking
thought I was
the
skinny
obvious.
enough you would miss me, but.
Talk about overlooking the obvious.
I have no comment this evening.
Oh, well, shoot. Now did I miss anybody? I want to thank all the commissioners for being present tonight. It's a treat to have not only a quorum, but to have the full commission present. And as always, Mr. Eanes, Mr. Zer, Mr. Carteret, thank you very much. I was looking back, approving minutes from our September 1st meeting this evening. It's kind of like, yeah, that's been a while. We have had, I believe, 2 work sessions in between, so we haven't been completely dormant. But at any rate, it's interesting how long can pass. And beyond that, let's see, I don't know that I have anything else either. Don't forget, if you want a printed copy of the new UDC, pick that up on your way out. If there's anything else, feel free to voice it now. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay. Motion by Mayor Kirkhoff. Who seconded?
One or the other of us, I don't
No,
know if he was
okay,
most
well,
there.
we'll give it to Commissioner Crane, and all those in favor of adjournment, raise a hand, please. I think I'm counting more than I should, but 9 in favor. None opposed, no abstentions. Yeah. Before I forget, I wanted to mention, so it looks like this may work out in your favor, the December 15th meeting. I'm working on travel plans that week, don't know.